Hey, I love stabbing. I mean, who wouldn't? It's a fun and easy way to get rid of someone who said something bad about you. But that's not what we're talking about today. No. Today, I will take you on a journey. A journey through the world of Nidhogg. 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 So, what is Nidhogg? It's a massively multiplayer party game with up to 60 players online in a free-for-all struggle through round after round of escalating chaos until one victor remains. Or maybe that was the description for Fall Guys. In all reality, the Steam store calls it the epic award-winning fencing tug-of-war, full of graceful acrobatics and clumsy stabs. IRL yelling and excitement may occur. I can confirm this one is definitely true. In this ultimate two-player showdown of fast-paced fencing and melee attacks. So, you get the idea, it's a fencing game. An acrobatic one at that. And because of this, some crazy stuff can ensue. Let's start with what I really love about this game. First of all, there's the combat in general, which I'll explain more in depth later in the video. The fighting in this game has so many small nuances that make it so good that anyone can pick it up and play, but it's very hard to master. Even then, a beginner could still beat a master if they just did this. Another thing I love about this game are 3 of the 4 maps. I'll get to the 4th map later. They are all varied and fun to play on, each one having its own gimmick, which I will again talk about later in the video. There's also the arcade-like gameplay that allows for a whole match to be done in about 2 minutes, depending on how good the opponent is. Now that I've covered all the good parts of Nidhogg, let's talk about a few things that could use a change. First of all, there's the problem with screen glitching. Occasionally, when both people die at the same time, there will be a stalemate before anyone gets advantage. Now this is all fine, but sometimes when this happens I nearly have a stroke. Now, I talked about a certain map I don't like. That map is the mines, and it has a terrible gimmick, which I'll talk about when I talk about all the other maps. For now, you just need to know that it's a bad map. Those were the 2 things I don't like about Nidhogg, so let's just move on to the movement. The movement in this game is a lot of fun to use, which is a good thing because it's half the game. I really think a lot of work went into making this game as tight as it is, so let me explain the small nuances of it. First, I'll talk about the 4 crouching options. As I said before, there are 4 options when crouching alone, 2 of which require you to run. The first option, a simple leg sweep. This will trip the opponent, allowing you to snap their spine. The next option is a simple hop. You can chain these together while running to look like a frog, but also make yourself a bit smaller. The next 2 require you to be running. First, there's a cartwheel, which can be done by tapping down while running. I'm not entirely sure what advantage this gives you, but I think it makes you a bit faster. The final option is a roll, which can be inputted by holding down. This lets you get under and past a sword, or even lead to a leg sweep. Other than the crouching options, there are many other fun things you can do. For example, there are wall jumps, wall slides, and wall climbs. That's a lot of wall-related things. Anyway, these all have their own uses, but are much simpler than the crouching moves I covered earlier. There is one kind of complicated tech that I like to call jitter movement. Basically, if you manage to tap left or right continuously, then you're able to use this technique. While you may move slightly slower than normal, it allows you to hold your sword out while you move, which is a massive advantage for getting away from an opponent's attack and punishing it. This is probably the most complicated thing to use, as it is very tricky to get right. While there is a lot of interesting movement in Nidhogg, there is much more depth to the combat, so let's get into that. When you first start the game, you spawn with a sword. This sword is obviously used to kill the opponent, but there are many ways to do this. First, you can hold your sword high, low, or in the middle. The advantages to each are as follows. A high sword can counter jump kicks and block thrown swords. The middle sword also blocks thrown swords and allows for quick change to low or high. The low sword can't block thrown swords, but it is good for catching rolls and protecting your feet. The main attack is a simple thrust, which has quite a bit of range. However, if range is what you're after, You can hold up and press attack to toss your sword with zero gravity like it's a Hitman game. It can hit you while you're running, in the air, or holding low. However, once you throw the sword, you lose it. What are you supposed to do then? Well, other than the crouching options I covered, you can jump attack or simply punch. The jump attack just may be the best attack in the game, as it even sometimes hits above the high sword. This allows you to easily snag kills in disadvantage and get you back in advantage. And hey, if you don't have a sword, you even go slightly faster. That is pretty much it for combat, so I'll talk about maps. There are 4 maps in Nidhogg: the Castle, Wilds, Clouds, and Mines. 3 of these are very well thought out and fun to play on, each having some sort of gimmick. Then there's Mines. The gimmick for Mines is the tunnel right next to the middle. To put it simply, it sucks for one main reason. If you have a sword, then you'll just keep bumping into each other. And if you don't have a sword, then there's literally no way to win a fight there. You can't jump kick in this hallway, so you can't mix up at all. This is why Mines is the only bad stage in my opinion. The gimmicks for all the other stages are fine. For Castle, there really is no gimmick. It's the default of the stages. For Wilds, there are elevated platforms and tall grass. For Clouds, it's this acid trip of a background and these clouds that disappear if you stand still on them for too long. These maps are all great, and I've definitely remembered everything I need to cover. Yep, 100%. For sure. Everything. How great. So, I don't actually play with variants all too often. They confuse me. I'll just go over what I know about them. First, there are rainbow trails. I don't know if this has any practical use in the slightest, but hey, if you want to taste the rainbow, be my guest. There are 3 more that I want to cover, all of which have to do with combat. The first is a simple no swords variant. Spine swords, one of the cooler ones, gives you a sword every time you snap someone's spine. Don't ask me how you would use someone's spine as a sword. I don't understand it either. The final variant, my personal favorite, is boomerang swords. When throwing the sword, it'll come right back. Unlike a boomerang, the only way to catch it is getting stabbed in the face, so I wouldn't suggest trying. So, I pretty much covered everything this simple game has to offer. Nidhogg is a lot of fun, and I recommend you go try it. All you have to do is go right there to the search bar on Steam and just type in Nidhogg and... Wait a minute. They made a sequel?